Ready to go? All right, good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. I do not speak Spanish, so I am going to speak only in English. Some would say I don't even speak English very well, but I appreciate your patience with us tonight. My name is Keith Johnson. I'm the County Administrator for Franklin County. I'm serving as a staff advisor to the Redistricting Committee. That's our folks up here at the front that are all leaders in our community. Cindy Hayes, who represents the Cattlemen Association, Felix Vargas, who represents District 1, George Dockstader, who's representing District 3, James Alford, who's representing the Farm Bureau. I see Martine and Lupe and Cynthia also on the committee down there. I'm sorry, Christina. Thank you. They are volunteers. They are not paid for this work. They are being tasked with coming up with recommendations to provide to the County Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners then will be tasked with making a final decision. I think most of you know now that Franklin County is a defendant in a lawsuit over our redistricting boundaries. What that just means for the purposes of our discussion tonight is that ultimately the Superior Court judge will be responsible for making a final determination about boundary lines. The purpose of this public hearing tonight is to hear input from you, members of the public, regarding your views about redistricting in Franklin County. We have 3 county commissioner districts. They have not been redrawn since about 2012, I believe. We are obligated under state law to redraw those boundary maps consistent with the 10-year census, which was just completed in 2020. There are some provisions in state law that the Board of Commissioners could redistrict more often than that if they had a reason to do so. But right now we're focused on the numbers and the data that have been provided from the 2020 census. So far the committee has come up with about 5 different map options that they wish to consider. I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we begin, could I invite everyone to join in the Pledge of Allegiance while we're here? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I end up doing more talking than perhaps I should, but my intent is to try to help streamline things and keep the meeting moving forward. As I mentioned, we have currently 5 different options that we have considered. There is not any one proposed map that has particular favorites amongst the board or amongst the committee. We may continue to develop new options to consider, but the intent of the redistricting effort is to make sure that each district is roughly equal in population, that it does not split up communities of interest, that it follows appropriate compactness rules under the State Voting Rights Act, and meets the needs of our community. So this process of hearing from you is important, and tonight's effort is really a listening effort to hear from you what your views are. I will briefly just go through those 5 options so you can kind of have in your mind the distinctions. They're on the map or the screen up here. What each option shows is Franklin County as a whole, and then it draws into more detail in the city of Pasco area. The reason that's important is 80% of the population of Franklin County is concentrated in the city of Pasco. And so any district boundaries that we draw are going to be impacted primarily within the city of Pasco. Can we zoom in on the, this is the current commissioner districts, and if you They're color-coded, a pink, green, and blue color. You'll notice District 3, which is blue, comes down and includes a small section south of Highway 12 or 182, just west of 14th Avenue. And also District 1, which is the pink color, juts out across 395 into East Pasco. And that has been kind of the source of contention around redistricting maps, is what should that boundary between districts 1, 2, and 3, right in that where they all come together, what should that look like going forward? Right now we do have an imbalance in the population numbers of the three districts. District 3 has 37,739 people, and District 1 has just over 30,000. We're not required to have them exactly the same, but they need to be really close to the same number in population. There can be a little bit of anticipation of growth. We know that there are certain parts of the city and the county that are growing more rapidly than others, but under the Voting Rights Act, we're tasked with trying to balance those three districts. So the first option we're considering Yeah, let's go ahead and zoom in, because basically it's very similar to the existing one, although it reconfigures that east-west boundary between the pink and the green. You'll see it splits right along 395. It comes west of 395 just as it intersects with the freeway. That's not a heavily populated area, but it's a single precinct that covers on both sides of 395 right there. And we cannot split a precinct into two different commissioner districts, so that's why that is not a perfect line up 395. What that does is you'll see the numbers changed. They're right at about almost 32,000 for each of the three districts, and it keeps most of East Pasco into a single district east of 395 and south of Highway 12. The next option splits the northern. Let's go back just one slide, please. Thank you. It splits the North County primarily into two districts, somewhat along 395 as it goes north, but to balance the numbers, it has to come west of Connell, right at about Mesa. And then if you zoom in, this allows District 1 to go a little further to the east into East Pasco. And because of the North Franklin County part of Commissioner District 2 under this proposal, it basically rotates from option 1 a little bit counterclockwise. Yeah, let's go to the next one, please. Thank you. So option 3 follows the similar to option 1, and let's go, zoom in there. A little cleaner of a line, or use the same line between 395, or with 395 on the east and west sides of that the earlier option did, but it goes further up the Snake River. And it also goes further up the Columbia River with, yeah, you're fine. Option 4, this was generated primarily from the public meetings that we had in Mesa and Connell, where there was a fair amount of public comment that they preferred commissioner districts where each commissioner represented both a rural and an urban part of Franklin County in there. So it's kind of a spoked or wagon wheel. The reason that the lines aren't particularly straight on this one is just because of the precinct boundaries. And it follows those precincts up and down the Snake and Columbia River, and has a district proposed in the middle that includes Connell and Mesa and most of that rural part of the county. And then all three districts would dip down into the city of Pasco. District 1 would break off at Road 52, and then District 3 would break off at 395, similar to those other options. And then option 5 shows again one large north district, but that would exclude any of the city of Pasco south of Sandifer in that district. This shows kind of a waterfront district all from Road 100 all the way over to East Pasco and then up the Snake River a little bit. And then the green District 2 would then, actually I think this would be District 3, but it overlaps Highway 182 both north and south on the west side of Pasco. So those are the options that we have considered so far. And I would invite members of the committee to speak if they have comments preliminarily, and then we'll turn the time to you for your input as to what you feel would be you'd like to see. Any comments on the? Go ahead, Mr. Vargas.
Just a couple of comments. One, tonight was an evening where we had two meetings. There was a Pasco School District board meeting on the very same type of issue as this. It began at 6 o'clock. It's probably still ongoing. So that unfortunately has impacted adversely the attendance of people here, and I regret that very much. The second comment I'd make is that it's a tough job for this committee to come up with map proposals. The input received is very, very helpful in doing that. It helps us along so that we have a buy-in from those attendees. Obviously, the more diverse the attendees, the more complete the product. We do not have legal advice. We don't have technicians who can walk down the 2018 voters' rights law that was passed, which governs the criteria for establishing the jurisdictions of the boundaries and so forth, and that's regrettable. So we don't have the capability to properly analyze every map option against the criteria laid out in the law, and that's been a handicap. But we'll do the best we can. It will not be a perfect product.
All right, let's hear from you. There's a microphone right here, and we would ask you to speak into the microphone. We are broadcasting the meeting or streaming it and recording it. So in order to pick up the sound, please speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. Yeah, please state your name for the record, if you would, please. We'd like you to keep your public comment to 3 minutes or less. If you use up your 3 minutes and you still have more to say, we'd ask you to allow others to speak, and then we'll give you a second opportunity if time permits.
I brought 2 copies. Oh, it's not on.
Brian.
My name's LaWanda Hatch. I am the PCO for the Republican Party in Precinct 100. I wanted to first, because there's some newer people here, to kind of explain how this all started. So we have a UCLA California law group who supports much Marxist ideology, claiming that the Hispanic candidates cannot win county-wide races here in Franklin County. That's what the lawsuit's about. Their evidence, according to their lawsuit that you can find online, is the race in 2018 where Zara Roach did not win and the 2020 race where Anna Peralta didn't win. So first, Zara Roach does not live in East Pasco. She lives on the west side in a very nice home, is married to a Caucasian man who is the son of a doctor. She's not Hispanic. She is Muslim by birth. Zara did win an at-large position for the city council the second time she ran. Anna Peralta, who's here this evening, is a very nice person. She raised a lot of money, came in second in the primary and second in the general. Actually pretty remarkable for the first time running. Commissioner Mullen lost in both the primary and general the first time he ran, as well as Commissioner Didier, who is also present, lost races before he finally won. Matt Beaton lost in the primary the last time he ran for commissioner, although he raised a lot of money. It is very rare to win any race the first time you run, partly because the campaign is actually only from May to November. Even with a lot of money, it is not enough time to get people to know you. The first time you can also not exactly know what you're doing. Fourth, one person that did win the first time she ran was Josie Kelzer. Her maiden name is Ochoa, and both her parents are immigrants from Mexico. Josie beat out a Caucasian incumbent the first time she ran, and she has won twice more since. She won in both the primaries and the general, and I understand she's running next year. So why is this UCLA law group really here? They see an opportunity to cut East Pasco off from the rest of Franklin County. They not only want to make it primary only, they want to make it general only, district only voting, which means each district will be 3 separate entities from each other instead of one Franklin County. Now, first of all, they believe that those that do not speak English the best, although I understand everyone here does, but they feel like that it's easier to manipulate people that are not speaking English. It's easy to tell them one thing in Spanish and then do another in English. So I wanted to know how many that are present actually know what the new sex education lessons that were passed by the Democrats by this state. What they teach kindergartners that masturbation is great. They teach older children how to have abortions behind their parents' backs. They teach many things that we might find inappropriate for our children. In 2018, Commissioner Peck tried to strong-arm Rocky Mullen before he was a commissioner and asked him to help the Democrat Zara Roach win by threatening him and asserting him not to worry because Zara Roach is dumber than a bucket of rocks, according to Commissioner Peck. So what is his game? I guess he thinks because of the language barrier, again, he'll be able to manipulate whoever East Pasco puts in office for his purposes. If you think any of them will serve the Hispanic community, just look at our current economy. Commissioner Peck is the only commissioner in Franklin County that voted to raise taxes and voted to give himself a raise. Look at your taxes going up, your heating costs, your home, gas prices, food prices, and rent. Businesses are being destroyed with those policies at a time when they barely are hanging on after COVID. The Marxists in our universities, our teachers' unions, media, and our government are all trying to turn us into a communist Venezuela, North Korea, Cuba, or China. And they are all Marxist regimes. They use fear of this virus to manipulate and cheat, and the more Chinese-backed dollars that they flood into our economy, the more worthless our dollars become that we work hard for. The fruits of dividing our county will only hurt the Latino people and children most. My grandparents were poor. They worked in the fields by hand. My grandmother, with my uncle on her back, she had to hand cradle hay while nursing my uncle. My great-grandfather was blinded in a lumber mill accident, yet his faith in God was deep, and he learned how to read Braille and became a minister to provide for his family. How many that are here in this room came as immigrants? Maybe they lived in East Pasco, and yet now their children live in West Pasco or even another town. Are they not better off than you when you came? It is because of you, your dream, and your hard work that it is possible, but also because of the USA and the good people of Franklin County that this is possible. Not only do we accept people of all different ethnicities, we celebrate them here. I bought my daughter's formal dresses at La Princesa and other dress shops in downtown Pasco. They were not cheap either. I recall one 10-year-old boy that worked in his mother's dress shop, and I asked him if he liked working there, which he gave me an adamant no. I then winked and told him, "Don't worry, my friend, in a few years you will." They were beautiful gowns and worth every penny. Okay, so I'm out of time?
Yes, please.
I've got 2 paragraphs, but I will wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, panel. I need to turn it on.
Yeah, you're good.
Good evening, panel. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for giving of yourselves very selflessly to work on this very difficult problem that we've all acknowledged time and again. Looking at the options, a few of you panelists I haven't seen before, so I thought I would share just a little bit. I'm a developer here in Pasco, and one thing that I think that we should be careful to consider, that we don't make this problem down the road any worse than is necessary. And this map that we see in front of us, I'll just give you an example, and you can look at the other maps and consider the same. The area where the dividing line between green and blue is, not all, but very near all of the residential growth that will happen in the next 5 or so years, plus or minus, will happen inside of that blue district, District 3, as represented in this map. Most of our growth is happening in West Pasco, and it's heading north just because of the bounds of the way our county is laid out. If we go with a map that it resembles this, we'll very rapidly, because of the speed of our growth in Pasco, very rapidly we will be out of compliance like we are today. So I think you should take that into consideration. Map number 4, I think, represents what we've talked about as being equally representative. So I had a couple of questions here. I don't know if you can answer them. Could you please somehow explain to us what it means that when the districts need to be as compact as possible? We have a physical land mass. I don't know how that you can make something compact when you have a physical area that is bounded. I don't understand. So that's a question that I think that would be helpful if we answered. And then there was a statement made just a moment ago, and I certainly would like some clarification for. I was in the commissioners' meetings when this commission was thought and brought forward and answered, and it was just a statement was just made that this board did not have access to legal counsel or consideration of the codes of the 2018 Voting Rights Act, and would love some clarification there. If in fact if I remember correctly, the commissioners gave access to the county's resources to help assist them, and so it would be good to have some clarification there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baumann. Considering you've got a few seconds left, I'll try to respond very briefly to your questions. I think they're good ones. In terms of the compactness, I don't think there is a clear black and white type legal response to that, but it does basically mean that the maps of the districts cannot be spread out over what you might look as fingers within a map, reaching into certain neighborhoods or reaching into certain geographies of the county, but they have to be self-contained within each district.
So it's not that they can't be linear.
Correct.
You can't just reach out with fingers in other areas. It's as reasonably rounded edges as possible.
Yeah, and there is probably some subjectivity to that, but that would ultimately be decided by the court in this particular case. And as far as legal counsel, the county's legal counsel on the lawsuit has not directly been engaged with the committee, but we're working to allow that to take place.
Okay. One other just real brief thing. Our treasurer, the county treasurer, did not in fact have both of her parents did not immigrate here from Mexico. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Could be a short meeting. Anyone else that would like to weigh in on these?
My name is Jim Follansby. Live out in district near the precinct 100 east of 395, about where Sagemore is. I wonder if we could have option, oh, this is option 4. That's the one I'd like. Being compact is a bit difficult with the way the population is distributed. You have so much of the population within Pasco. The only way I see that we can have these equal is to have these vertical sections where part of it is urban. You go to suburban, rural, and finally out into the farming area. And I think this map was a real effort to get these populations as close as they did. I commend whoever did this for making that happen, because you have such a concentration here in Pasco. Every commissioner with this model has urban, suburban, rural, and farming in each one of them, and therefore will not lose sight of the requirements or needs of any one of those groups. If they're only in one section of Pasco, that's all they're going to care about, because that's what elects them. So I'd like to once again say that I think option 4 is a very good effort to get a workable solution, and recommend that. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Ismael Mendoza. I am a political science student at Pasco CVC. And, well, I looked all the maps that were shown. And for some reason, unfortunately, I haven't read the whole lasso, but I skimmed through the papers. The papers that I try to
Ismael,
read,
could you
they're
speak up, please? We have an
they're
hard time.
from the UCLA website, and they're basically done in a way that you cannot read them properly because they're blurry and.
Mr. Mendoza, I'm sorry for the interruption. You might just lower your mask while you're
Oh.
speaking into the microphone. I realize that's not a perfect solution, but it's
okay.
difficult to hear the recording. If you would, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, what I was trying to say is I have not read the actual thing because it's hard to read. It's in a way that I try to look it up at the Franklin County website, but I couldn't find it, and I was expected it to be a legal public record. So I was able to find it in UCLA, but it's not readable. It looks like cheap copies, not a librarian work. So, but my understanding, I skimmed through what I was able to read and not being annoyed by the letters. And my understanding is the thing is, census happens every 10 years for a reason, because communities change constantly. And I will ask the board to please stick to the numbers that were produced in the right era, is the 2020 census. So speculations are nice, and grow is actually encouraged, right? Because the state, that's what they want. They want more business, more people, more revenue. So let's just keep focus on the 2020. And, it's not like it's going to be a problem that is going to be kicked down the road. It's just that lines change every 10 years regardless of where we think. Now, in my opinion, if there are more like the first map, which to common sense, it makes more sense to me based on where the lasso stays. The communities need to be within, reasonable to say that they're communities and they share the same interests. For example, if you leave, let's say, Overturf and Molten, right? So there's no way that you're gonna come and take a drive of, where you like, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, to have fun with someone over here, because you have nothing to do with that community in reality. And that's the whole thing, let's put them together, because that's breaking the community. So, I don't know, I think that's two. Number one. Option one? Yes. Oh, it was that one, I guess. So you see, we can see East Pasco. And actually, if you think about it, people from East Pasco, they only go to West Pasco because of Walmart and things like that. And people from East, if they have Bank of America, because there's no Bank of America over there, so you have to come down to downtown. So they're it makes sense this way because, like I say, it's supposed to be a shared community. There's nothing in common with the communities all the way in Cornell, all the way in Basin City. They have nothing in common with Pasco. They do share many interests, but in reality, there's no they might have family members, all over the county, but your interests are within a certain range. And I have taken the drive, and it's a long drive. I know in the map, it looks easy, and the lines are like this, but take a ride there. It is actually insane. Franklin County happens to be insanely big. And, well, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Martin Parrott, and I'm out in Precinct 99, out by Star School. I'm actually out by Molten Road and Overturf. I have a section of ground that I farm. That's right on those roadways. Anyway, option 4 is your best option here because, the state of Washington's got a problem because most of the population lives on the west side. They control our elections. If you guys go with option 1, us people out in the rural communities will have no voice. You'll have 2 against 1. Option 4 is the best because everybody shares in. You have each district will have urban and it will have rural. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Kevin Schultz from District 1. I'm going to try to keep my emotions in check. The last commissioner meeting, I got a little carried away, so I'll try to keep a little calm. But I just want to make a quick response to this. There was a remark just made about how our community, the north and the south and all that, they don't have anything to do with each other. I want to explain to that person that all these farmers out here, where do they come? Where do they come to get their fuel? Cornell Oil. Where do they buy their tractors? RDO. Do they shop at Pasco Ranch and Home? You think our community isn't involved with each other? I drive from District 1 out to District 3 almost every day. There's a lot of damn traffic on that road, and they're going both directions. If you don't think there's people living in town working out there and people out there working in town, you're wrong. We do not need to divide this county. This county needs to come together. Don't ever for a minute think that those people out north aren't spending most of their money in this town.
My name is Gabriel Portugal, and I just give you a couple of comments. I've attended a couple meetings before. I heard some of the stuff that we're kind of repeating it, and I'm going to try not to repeat it. The idea to have this meeting in Spanish was, I thought, a great idea, and we brought that at one of our meetings. I was at the Pasco School District meeting, and they had it in Spanish. And as a retired school teacher, principal, I put together lots of meetings where 95, if maybe more, spoke Spanish only, and the meeting was conducted in English. So when I saw the majority here, I was watching that everyone here mainly speaks English. I thought this will be a great experience for them to understand what we go through when we have to sit there, and the majority of us speak Spanish, but we have to listen to the whole meeting in English because that is the way the meetings are set. And so I thought tonight would have been a great experiment, but we failed. And because your equipment was not, you guys failed that too. Over there in Pasco School District did well. They had the equipment in place, and they were able to conduct what I thought a great experiment, because I saw the majority were English speaking. And you can tell the dynamics that is going on when you have to listen to a translation. Oh, it's going to take twice as long. That's what I heard someone say. And they were already dreading that. So we failed that experiment, and sorry about that. The other comment I wanted to make is about the elections and why we're looking at keeping in option one is the one that I think is closer to what will be following the WBRA. And so we can come up here and say opinions about what the community, what we do, all the different thoughts that come. Are we splitting? Are we together? But the reality is for me, I watched this since the 70s. We have candidates running, great candidates for not only commissioner, but other elected officials. And when you have a primary and a general, and you vote district-based in the primary, and then at the general you do at large, what happens is that a district-based August, the primary, you got 5 candidates running, 2 are left. I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. Jefferson and Garcia are the 2 finalists. Then it comes to the general, where it's a large. The majority are Anglo voters that speaks no Spanish. They see Garcia. I'm not going to vote for Garcia. So that's why the law is in place now, to make it fair for those people that for whatever reason they're voted down when it gets down to the general. It is not to pick on anybody. It's just to give an opportunity for all of us to have a playing even, so that it can be someone elected based on district-based at the August primary and district-based in the general. So throughout I've been here for a long time. I've seen great candidates that, like I said, and it's a pattern that is not just to us, so don't take it personal, Franklin County. It's throughout the state, throughout the nation, that things need to be changing. The demographics are changing, the people are changing. We need to adapt to the changes, and I'm sorry, sometimes it's really hard for change to be accepted by some people, and that's why we have all these passions, the running through defending our ideas and our thoughts as to what makes sense to us based on our experiences. So I am hoping that you can look at this with an open eye, and as a commission, I really thank you, and thank you, Mr. Vargas, for letting us know that that you have not had the WBRA legal laid out to all the commissioners, and make sure that we are following the closest to what the WBRA is asking us. There are feelings about our governor. I heard some really bad feelings, and when people come up here, they say their political party, and it's okay. It's your freedom of speech, but this should not be partisan. This should be nonpartisan. We all should look at what is best for the changes that are coming our way. So once you choose the map, whatever option you decide as commissions and as the Franklin County Commissioners. Obviously, they have to have the final say. We're still going to go at it and find out if it really it follows the WBRA. We're still going to follow and see what the demographics of each of the districts that you're dividing this. Even though we agree with the option one, we're still going to be looking at the demographics of each of those districts and how is that put together. And in the end, the law based on the judge will make a decision, and that's what we're all going to have to live with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey Keith, do you guys have the map of the distribution of the Hispanic population in Franklin County?
Yeah, we do.
So I was just real quick, this dovetails into an earlier question about kind of suggestive language versus regulatory language within the RCW. And just, I was looking through it because I hadn't really necessarily thought about it from that standpoint. But essentially, when talking about compact, it says shall be reasonably compact, which comes across as suggestive, in my opinion. And each district shall consist of a geographic contiguous area. If there was something that prevented that from happening, it seems like it's somewhat suggestive. To the extent feasible, district boundaries shall coincide with existing recognized natural boundaries to preserve existing communities. Again, suggestive. There are two regulatory pieces within the current one that's effective until January 1st, 2023, that are regulatory. And in that it states that district boundaries may not be drawn or maintained in a manner that creates or perpetuates the dilution of votes of the members of a protected class. For the purpose of this poorly written law, a protected class is a class of voters whose members are of a race, color, or language minority group, and this class has been referenced in the Federal Voting Rights Act. And for the purpose of Franklin County, the protected class is the Hispanic population, which you can see is throughout the whole county, but concentrated highly. If you guys zoom in on the next option, you can see it's concentrated in East Pasco. So from a map standpoint, I guess if you, and I don't know if you guys have the ability to go slightly east or not on this map, but it seems that the Hispanic community kind of drags all the way out to Ice Harbor Road, south of Pasco Clotis Highway. I haven't seen a map option that presents that particular opportunity, but I guess for the purposes of illustration, so you guys know what we're working with, there's nothing that we can do that presents a feasible map if you bring in precincts that aren't a majority Hispanic population, because you're going and diluting that class. That's a regulatory language. I would suggest, even if you could go a little farther east on the map again, if you look at the precinct, there's no one living in that area. That's mostly farm ground where it's green, and I think it's maybe some state ground in there as well. But I don't think it would do justice to those populations north of Clotis Highway, where it's fairly dark, or all the way down to where Levy Park is there, to cut those ones out. So I guess my recommendation would be, and I'm speaking from, on the committee, but also when I've been talking to people about it, I don't see why the East Pasco district, the District 2, wouldn't include those portions. I think it would fit within the regulatory language that those precincts are included within the District 2 map. I don't think it does anything to reduce its compactness, given that it's reasonably compact compared to the other ones, but it also does nothing to dilute the voting class, in my opinion. So I just wanted people to see what also we're looking at, if you haven't seen this map yet. If you do like option 5, where it was the riverfront option, you're clearly doing a dilution effect. So we can propose all these maps, but this is what the judge is looking at. He's looking at where's the distribution. So I guess Yeah, well, so option 5, but without it extending across the Blue Bridge, would be something that's ideal, I think, in keeping, the new District 1 in red, stopping at the Blue Bridge and extending to the freeway there on the north end. I think that correlates with the distribution. Once you bring it into the riverfront all the way up to Road 100, I think then you get into the dilution again. So I just wanted to share the viewpoints of what we're looking at when we're looking at the granular data behind it. And when we're trying to come up with things, we can try to balance it, we can try to keep it contiguous, but anything we submit to the court, the judge is gonna immediately throw out if we're doing anything that has the appearance or intentionally includes precincts that are from outside the protected class. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Good evening. Is it on? Can you hear me?
Speak right into it if you would, please.
Taller. Otherwise, got to squat. Good evening, everyone. I came prepared to give my speech in Spanish, and I would introduce myself as Santiago Roberto Jimenez Viegas. However, we're now in English. I went to preschool not speaking one word of English. That might be a surprise for some of you. I still can actually remember that day of walking in, and as some of my relatives would say, when you walk into a room and not understanding the language, it's just noise. It's like white static. I still remember that day. I went to Edward Markham, and I thought I spoke English quite fine. And now I'm running into my classmates and they're telling me otherwise. Due to a patient principal, Joe Mosbar, who allowed my mom to be the kindergarten teacher along with him, they taught the class. But as such, I was born in Our Lady of Lourdes, and on my birth certificate is James Robert Jimenez. Probably because my dad was in the Army as a ranger, maybe got yelled at enough times by your last name, and that's how I got Angloized down to that. I get that asked often. My brother's English was not improving, and so therefore it was recommended that my parents switch to English. And so they did. And now as such, my preference is English. We have 3 boys, my wife and I, and all 3 are in the dual language program in the Pasco School District. So that means in kindergarten, if you don't know, they walked in and only Spanish is being spoken. So they got to experience their English as their primary language at that moment. Now it became the language not spoken in the classroom. I think that's a very valuable lesson for just about anyone. At this time, they actually have a greater vocabulary than I do. Good for them. I have attended many of these meetings. I've voiced my opinion on many of them. Our county may have many problems, but division is not the solution. I've said in previous meetings that fair and equitable representation, I would recommend is on option 4. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Adan Suarez. I live in District 3, work in District 1 with a developer. I also went to school at Markham, interestingly enough. My kids went to Edward Markham. One side note, I appreciated asking them when we transferred from in town out to Edward Markham, what did you love about the school? And they're like, we can run on pavement. That spoke volumes to me, just FYI. Out of all the options, I see most of them, it's segregation, it's exclusion. The only one that I can see be inclusive is option 4. Thank you.
My name's Leo. Sorry. Shouldn't have said that a lot, right? My name's Leo Peros. I live in, I believe, District 2, Precinct 39. To be honest, I heard a lot of comments tonight, and I agree with a lot of them on both sides, for and against this. And if I had to choose certain maps, I would choose 4 and 5. However, tonight this whole meeting was supposed to be conducted in Spanish, which would have been great. But yeah, when I walked in here, majority of people in here are speaking English. So what I'm trying to say is we're changing our whole system to get more Latino representation, yet they're not even here. So if I'm gonna stay on brand, I'm calling out all Latinos in Franklin County, City of Pasco, Connell, you need to start voting. It's that simple. Because you can change the map all you want, but then at the end of the day, we don't even know if we're gonna get a Latino representative, if that's the whole goal here, to get a Latino token representative, if you will. Because we don't even know. The point is, people need to start voting, and in this case, Latinos need to start voting. It's that simple. You can cry all you want, but nothing's gonna change until you start voting. So, again, my option would be 4 and 5, but I also think, though, if we want to stay away from being divisive, we should just do 2 districts and 1 at large. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ana Armijo, and I have lived in Franklin County for over 40 years. And I guess mainly I like to respond to Mr. Peralez's comment in regards to Hispanics not showing up. And I guess my question to the committee, to the commissioners, would be, how did you communicate to the Hispanic community? What did you do? What efforts did you take? Where did you communicate with them? Did you seek them out? So what part did you take in that?
I think it's a fair question. I'll briefly respond to it. We did send notice to the Hispanic newspaper, to the Hispanic-speaking radio stations. We published it in the Herald and the Graphic, thank you, in both English and Spanish. And so we have done some level of outreach in the Spanish language to folks.
I guess personally, I never heard it advertised.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would just quickly like to share something. Like you guys already know, I'm a political science student, and because I love it. So I talked to, I'm a landscaper guy, irrigation and stuff. So I know people all over this area of the county. Not the north, because I don't really go that far. But anyways, I have talked to teachers from Pasco High. I have talked to teachers from elementary school, and I have asked them, are you aware of this going on? Nobody has a clue. I have talked to communities and school representatives, and I have asked them straight up, Are you aware of the meetings that are going on in the Franklin County area for the redistricting of the map? Nobody knows. And I'd just like to share that one.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ana Ruiz Kennedy. I want to share the perspective of a person that ran and was a candidate. When I ran, I ran on an election system, the current election system, and I didn't run to represent just a specific area. When I became a citizen, I pledged allegiance to the flag just as everyone else here, and I love this land, and I raised my kids here. They were born here. We moved to Pasco because of the community. So I didn't run just to represent a certain area of the community. I ran to be part of the election process and the decision-making process, not just to represent a certain class. So I take offense when I hear that people are not gonna be represented. There's people being elected right now that they're saying we're running to represent, and we represent everyone, and it's still the same. So just as a reference, I'm not sure if you understand, when you show the map, you have the population, that area voted 67% in favor of the Latino candidate. So it is what it is, and I wasn't sure how it was gonna be, but that's what the re-elections showed. They turned out and voted. They answered, they called, they donated, they participated, they're engaged. They don't know that this is going on right now. I was waiting to see what the communication was. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So I don't know, guys. It's a part of soul searching, if you will, of the county and the communication process that you have. How do you reach out to your constituents, the voters? You have a school district, we are here, and they do know very well how to communicate with parents and students, and they communicate on all kinds of ways, and we all know. So there are ways to communicate to the entire community, including the Latino population, and they will show up. Thank you.
So I guess, first of all, I just wanted to apologize to Josie Kelzer because I was told that her parents were descendants, but it was further back, so I apologize for that. The other thing is, it was said that I was stating that I was upset that it would take longer to have my words translated. I did not say that, and that being implied is offensive to me. Actually, I said we will need extra time. We need more than 3 minutes if we are going to have what we state translated. I'm happy to be in a room speaking Spanish. Actually, when my husband and I were first married, we were in the Spanish-speaking branch, and I didn't know very much Spanish. And we sang our hymns, everything was in Spanish. And I even taught the translation of Christ in Spanish on the Sermon on the Mount without knowing very much Spanish. So I do appreciate the Spanish language. I can't say why people don't know about the Redistricting Commission meetings, because they are, as I know, in every paper, on the radio stations. With the school districts, they can send letters home with the children. That makes it a lot more effective. We don't have that ability in Franklin County. And as voters, we have a responsibility to make ourselves educated and aware of what's going on. So that's what I do. And when I announced that I was the precinct officer for Precinct 100, that was to let everyone know that I represent Precinct 100. And it's not about politics, so. But I wanted to finish this last thing because I want people to understand we are one Franklin County. I bought my daughters, I have 3 girls. I bought their formal dresses at La Princesa and other shops in downtown Pasco. They were not inexpensive dresses, you know, $300 to $500 dresses, but they were gorgeous. And they were worth every penny. My children's favorite donuts are Vieira's Bakery. The best tortillas are at Atomic Foods. The best grocery prices are at Fiesta Foods. And of course, the best fireworks are at Greg's. Beto's Auto Repair kept our Yukon driving several years longer than it would have, and probably should have. But we have for years had booths supporting the Fiery Food Festival and the Pasco Farmers Market. Our family supports East Pasco businesses because they are part of the beautiful and tolerant fabric that has always made Franklin County more amazing and richer than the other counties throughout Washington State. We know how difficult it is to run a small business, and we want as much of our dollars to stay here in Pasco. For your sakes, for your children's sakes, please learn the truth and ask questions. I always forget the gentleman's name that was here speaking, but he is actually, I believe, part of the lawsuit. So I think that's interesting that he makes comments at these meetings, but they have to provide you a translator. If you come to the commissioner meetings, they have to provide you translation. We wanted this meeting to be in Spanish. The technology didn't work quite right, and it was asked if anyone only spoke Spanish, they would be offering translation for them. And so we need to appreciate the efforts, although not perfect. Please, mostly don't believe that USA is a racist nation or that Franklin County is a racist county. Latinos can win and have won. Please do not let Marxists teach your children to hate, but teach them tolerance and love that I was raised in and how my children were raised. We need to be one Franklin County. What hurts one hurts all. What helps one helps all. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Kevin Schultz again. I just wanted to reiterate what LaWanda said, that to blame a committee for not putting information out there is just a cop-out. If you say you want to be represented, you have an obligation to involve yourself and educate yourself. That's not the committee's responsibility. So, and we all know this is a racial issue, whether you want to admit it or not. The only racist remark I heard tonight was to imply that me as an English-speaking only person would not vote for somebody with the last name Garcia. That's insulting.
Good evening, Jake Dorsey. Thank you again, committee, for showing up. Gentleman in the gray hat, what was your name? I missed it, I apologize.
Sorry, James Alford with the Franklin County Farm Bureau.
James, thank you so much. I just wanted to say your perspective tonight was great to hear, really encouraged by that. Wanted to, if I could, play off of that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
Thank you so much. So there's been some talk tonight about, option 4 basically versus option 1. That's mostly what everybody's talking about. Do we still have the Snake River option? Is that what this is here? 3? Yeah, there we go. Zook, can you zoom in? Thanks. So when you were talking about different maps and whatnot, and you almost sounded like a compromise kind of thing. That, more or less, right? Does that look about right to you?
Yeah, more or less. Trying to keep the population balanced. Without really taking into consideration where the proposed District 1 or District 3 would land, but the new District 2 on this particular map, in the green, I was trying to come up with a way, and I'm representing the interests of farmers, but coming up with a way that we can adhere to the way the law has been written, and at the same time, I didn't see why we would cut it off at East Pasco when it would defeat the purpose of that community. Like Anna Ruiz, she's left, she made the comment that that area voted 62% Hispanic, and so that's great. That just illustrates my point that by including this proposed green district going out that way towards Clotis Highway, I don't think it does anything to dilute the protected class. I think it keeps it reasonably compact and contiguous. In regards to where the proposed District 1 and 2 or 3 on here would land, I mean, it takes into consideration some of the things that have include, further development in a little bit of the agricultural area, but basically, yeah, my point was something like this, where the green area keeps that whole Hispanic distribution that's over 75% per precinct contiguous. And yeah, I think option 3 does a pretty good job of getting it there.
Now, sorry if I feel like I'm interrogating you folk. It's just, it's kind of interesting to be able to go back and forth if you don't mind. Count me out on my time if you need to. Would you be okay with, when you're looking at these maps, say those precincts that are north of 182 there getting traded with the precincts that are kind of basically north central Pasco, Sandifer, Burden, all of that? Because I know that there's a lot of development going on up there. It feels like maybe that could be a kind of trade, but please.
Yeah, again, obviously it's a very safe assumption, I think, to make that there is going to be a substantial amount of development happening in that way in the future, but we are going off of the 2020 data. And at the same time, only working with the only regulatory language we have is that we can't dilute East Pasco. And then everything else, trying to critique it in a way that I think, that proposed District 1 and 3 can be kind of manipulated in any way, as long as we're keeping them contiguous and somewhat population balanced.
Right.
Because it's not doing anything to dilute a protected class there.
No, I'm with you on that. And then, I'm sorry.
You want to slightly zoom down?
Yeah, thank you very much. Because me personally speaking, I've worked on some elections, and this stuff I just pay attention to. We could tell that the precincts that are basically north of Highway 12 that are going on there, like, there ain't many folk that live there. There's just not that many. And some of them are densely Hispanic, but we know that there's not a great population there. So I can understand where you're coming from, that thinking that might work. It does encompass those areas that have dense Hispanic population.
Correct.
But it's not diluting East Pasco. Good compromise map. This might be a good compromise map. I don't know how the folk from the north feel about it. I just know from at least my own perspective, great compromise map. Maybe the judge will buy it. I would go for that one.
Thanks.
Yep. And I would like to remind like the farmers that are here too. So the proposed District 1 where this is at, 5-6 active farmers that are in that area. And I think that, and I haven't had the opportunity to speak with many of the people who came here in obvious support of the option 1, but I think that, we've talked a lot about not trying to divide the county, and I do think that there is probably, when I've at least talked to some individuals, a lot of people are pro-county and they're pro-agricultural. They might have a different viewpoint on how that gets relayed, but I think the important sentiment is that I think a farmer or someone who represents farming interests, which is what's my role right now in Farm Bureau, they can live anywhere in the county. And it's our goal with Farm Bureau to make sure we work with any candidate, which is why we spend a lot of time on the west side during the legislative session, because we do most of our time educating and working with people who don't agree with us, and trying to prevent bad regulations from happening. But from the standpoint of just being tasked on this committee and trying to work within the rules, what's regulatory, what's not, what's a judge going to say is the law, and what he says there's some subjective determinations that he can make, I think that something like this option 3 is a fairly good option to maintain some rural and urban interaction without diluting the protected class. That's just my opinion.
Steve Simmons, and I live in District 1. I just had a quick question, and I got here late, so I don't know if you guys had talked about Map 5 and what that's all about. I'd like to hear more about it. Also, I didn't know if you guys had, if there was any way to communicate, if you guys have done any surveys or anything like that, any way other than just coming to these meetings and giving input, if there's any way. I attended the school board one, and I'll tell you, it was interesting because they had, I don't know if you guys know what QR codes, you could go up and snap your phone on the QR code for that, and it would give it to you either in Spanish or English, and you could take a survey, and I was quite impressed with that. I thought that was really, really good. So I don't know if you guys had thought about reaching out in those ways to get more input from the community on these maps. So, thank you.
I think it was very thoughtful, James, what you shared there with that map number 3. I think that made a lot of sense with what you shared and the reasoning behind it. Would you bring up the map that shows population by the Hispanic, that showed that their population?
Would you like to zoom in more than that?
One more zoomed in. So I wanted to point out to a couple of things on here that doesn't make sense. It's this map I think is not fair, because looking at it, there's some areas, for instance, where Road 68 goes up. This spot right here. That spot right there. I believe that there is one solitary house in that whole color.
So it shows on my map, and I don't know if you guys have that map also on here. They might not have it preloaded. It shows maybe one household living there, but it shows in both those to the one that's just to the east of it as well. It shows less than 10 on my map. So.
Because I live there, there's nobody lives there except the wheat grower.
So that was my point in saying that this map really isn't a fair representation for us to look at this map and to say that there's a population there and there and there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really represent, because that lower right-hand brown square is bigger than all of what we all call East Pasco. So this map is really not helpful in this process, because it doesn't really show the population distributed very well.
These are census blocks.
I appreciate that, but as far as being helpful in this process, I think it's really unhelpful. It's actually counterproductive, because that looks like it represents a very large group of people, which it's very, very, very small population of people
And
like
it
theirs.
is one precinct too, right?
I'm sorry?
The area, the large one there is one precinct, correct?
I don't know how I don't know where the
I guess
background
I'm
of
just
this
saying
map
that
is.
when we look at drawing the map, we can't split a precinct, obviously.
Sure.
And that just happens to visually look kind of weird, but at the same time, it does include a majority Hispanic population. And I think that if it's close enough and contiguous enough to the other group, I thought it was logical to throw those whole areas in with each other.
Yeah, no, I agree with your
Okay,
sentiment, but I'm just trying to point out that looking at this map and saying the population represents by those colors and blocks is unfair, because that one block that I just seen has 10 people in it is larger than all of East Pasco, which has thousands. So that was what I was pointing out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Going once, going twice. Anybody else have any comments they'd like to add to the record tonight? Members of the committee, any closing remarks from anyone there? Okay. Well, thank you all for attending tonight. We will meet as a committee and continue the process, and hopefully come up with something that makes it work for us. Thank you for your attendance tonight.